Hey there, YouTube friends and family. It's the guy with beard, guns, and gear. I have a little bit of both today. I have gear and I have a firearm. So any of you guys who have watched, there is the classic World War II Carcano Calvary edition. Pretty cool little video on that. Just for all you, as I've said before, range safety officers occupying the YouTube channels. It is safe. There are no rounds in it. I don't even have any rounds up on the same floor. So when I bought it, I identified it. It's a little stiff. It's a little beat up in the wood department. So a project that I've been really looking forward to and I wanted to get on to, it's just a matter of time and money. And even if you might have the money, sometimes you don't have the time. So anyway, we're going to get to it. I'm going to go over some of the equipment that I kind of picked up in preparation for. First thing is this kit, basically, that I got at a gunsmith store, but you can find them pretty well anywhere. And it comes with some picks. It's a German product, and it is apparently supposed to be really good for like touch-up bluing. And I don't want to do a complete blue on this. There's just some pieces that need to be touched up, so that's where I'm going with it. So it comes with a bunch of different products. And when I get to that stage, I'll explain a little bit more detail, but I'm gonna need that for sure. The second thing I picked up was like a little magnetic bowl, basically, so that you don't lose any of the parts, because I would imagine finding a 100-year-old screw that goes into the stock is pretty difficult. I also went and picked up an assortment of brass and steel brushes. I'm gonna use the brass brushes only. I don't wanna mar anything, so steel brushes might come in handy at some other point, but brass brushes. I did pick up another kind of bore cleaner in the 6.5 caliber. I have some bore cleaner here, although this stuff here is supposed to have very, very, very potent bore cleaner, which I'm anxious to see what's going to come out of here. Got some Scotch-Brite pads in assorted kind of coarseness, if that's a word. Yeah. And then I have some gloves, because this stuff apparently is pretty toxic, some of the stuff in here. Penetrating oil, which I'm definitely going to be using, and I'm going to just basically spray all the bolt heads, and I'm probably not going to show you guys that, because I mean, you can figure that out, but I'm going to let it sit for quite some time before I even attempt to loosen the screws on that. I have some all-purpose cleaner. This is like simple grain. It's not going to be harmful to any of the stuff that it comes in contact with, and I'm basically going to use this to clean the stock, which has been oiled, and then it's got like years of grime and whatnot on it, but that's about it. And I've got some Minwax wood filler. I've never used this product particularly, and I'm not going to do a whole bunch of filling of it. I want to try and steam. There's some pretty deep gouges, well, gouges, dents, I'll say, that I should be able to steam out, so we'll show that at another time. But any like super deep gouges, I'm going to try and fill a little bit of it and then kind of leave a little bit of it, because as I said before in the other video, I don't want to ruin the history of the firearm. It's been through a lot, and I think it should show that a little bit. And then I've got some linseed oil, which I'm going to do the stock, because they did not varnish these firearms. They just oiled them for protection. And I've got a little bit of red mahogany wood finish, because from what I've seen when people take the oil off them, it's a very light colored wood, and I kind of like the dark color of it. In fact, I love the color of it right now. It just needs some love. That's all. So I'm going to give it some love. And assorted sandpapers, coarse, grit, all the way up to fine, super fine. I've got some 600 stuff here. You should have that on the standby, because you want to prepare your wood for receiving the oil and stain, and you want it nice and smooth. You don't want to do that after you've started assembling. And I picked up this, see if I can get it over here without making too much. I picked up this plastic kind of tub, which you can get for, $10 or $15. Just to kind of, clean over top of or whatever, so I don't have any kind of caustic liquids or making a mess when the grime from years and years. There's probably some cosmoline still in here. when that goes in there, and I don't want anybody to freak out when they see an absolute complete mess. So anyway, this cleaning kit here, it's got a little bit of everything. It's a Ballistol. It's, as I said, it's a German company, so you have like a product in here to prepare the metal to receive the bluing, and then you have the bluing liquid here. Not a whole bunch of it, but again, I don't need to blue the entire firearm, and there's probably enough in there to do the entire firearm if I wanted to. They also have some ceramic gun oil. They even have stock oil in here, and my dishwasher's done, as well as universal cleaner. Hickok 4.5 uses this stuff all the time, so I mean, if that guy uses it, it must be decent stuff, right? It also came with a nylon brush, which I like, and then, like I said, that little set of picks, and we'll see how that goes. So next part is just going to be applying some penetrating oil to the actual pieces here, and I think I'm going to use this tray over here, but and then I'm going to let it sit because it needs to sit. 100 years or so of grime and crap and all that, of course it's going to need to sit. So I'm going to use the top of this tray to do this because I don't think I'm going to make a whole bunch of mess, and I'm just going to take my little can of handy dandy penetrant. I was actually looking at something, and you DIYers out there, I saw a table and it showed basically how effective penetrating oil is depending on certain things, and this is the 3-in-1 stuff, and this was like rated in the mid-range, hoping I don't need more than that, but they actually said the most effective one, believe it or not, is a mix of transmission fluid and acetone, like in a 50-50. And I mean, the difference was crazy. So as you can see, like, you know, I've got the main screws that are holding this kind of trigger assembly slash barrel down onto the stock. I'm going to give this a really good soak, and I might come back to it even, but I'm going to let that soak in and see what happens. Wow, and that drank it up really fast. Really fast. There's also one at the front end here of the stock. I'm kind of glad I put this plastic down now because I can see it going everywhere. But even if it's got Cosmo, and there's this one here on the hinge or where you put attach your sling, so I definitely want to re-blue that because it's really taking some abuse. And you've got a couple on the butt plate. Let's see how I can do this. You're gonna lose my head, or I'm gonna chop my head off. Okay, so I'm just giving it a spray in there as well. So I'm gonna let that sit, and I'll probably come back and give it another shot in a couple hours or so. And what I'm gonna do is, I've got a screwdriver set down there, you know, that has different size blades and that. And that's one thing I wanna probably convey to you guys on if you're doing any kind of restoration, upkeep, you know, anything like that. Make sure you have the screwdriver that fits the bladed slot of the screw. Okay, there's nothing worse than taking a small screwdriver on a big blade screw. You're gonna damage your tool and probably damage the screw itself, and then you're not going to be able to get it properly out of there. Contrary to popular belief, a butter knife is not a screwdriver. Okay, so just take the time. If you have to, go out and purchase yourself a little kit of those screwdriver sets, and they typically come with like 50 or so screwdriver heads, and you'll have like an assortment, like 10 or so bladed. Anyway, that's what I'm going to do, and I'm going to go make sure that this stuff is all good to go. I'm going to give it a little shot as well up around where the bayonet lug is, just in case I do take that apart. Maybe give it a little touch up around the barrel. There's some kind of wear marks here, and like I said, that bolt is just, it's disgustingly grimy and stuff. So I want to have everything apart and really give this thing some love, because I love these old firearms and I want to preserve them. Although the metal is in fantastic shape, the stock needs some love, and I want to see what happens to it after I give it the care and cleaning that it needs, especially with some of those, like, supposedly, you know, Uber products from Germany. All right, we'll see if for part 2 or part 0.5 or part 1.5, if you want to put it that way. All right, welcome back. the firearm has been sitting for a little while now, probably about 2 hours or so. I did take the bolt out just because it gives me a little bit easier access to see what's going on, because when the screws are removed, you should be able to pull this out, although from what I've seen, people, if anything, it's going to be a problem with the band up here that attaches the stock and pinches that to both sides. So I'm hoping there's no issue. But so after all my make sure you have the proper size screwdriver, make sure you have the proper size screwdriver, I don't actually have the proper size screwdriver. So I am going to give this a little bit of an attempt, and if I see that it is not going to work, I'm going to stop right there. So anyway, I do have a bladed screwdriver that fits all the way down into the slot and bottoms out, and that's probably the most important thing. But I'm just going to give, oh, look at that. I guess the penetrating oil did its job, because those screws are coming out like nobody's business here at all. And I know that we do have to pay attention to what order the screws come out, because there's a long one and a short one. So I believe the long one is at the front. Well, we'll see in a second. Oh, this one too. That's amazing. Okay. So maybe somebody disassembled this within its life, you know, 100 years ago or whatever. This one actually feels like a much shorter screw. And it is in fact a shorter screw. So shorter screw at the front and longer screw at the back. Now I am going to attempt the band, and there may or may not be a spring in here. So I just want to be really super careful when I'm taking this out. Okay, and all of these screws are coming out really well, so that's a good thing. And like I said, I think the most important thing is just to make sure that that blade of that screw kind of bottoms out. And that screw is completely different size than the other ones, so that is a good thing. It should like slide, there we go. So it basically slides off of the barrel, and then you can see, wow, that stock is like really grimy underneath, not like clockwork. So I'm gonna have to take the bayonet log. Oh well, look at that. Let's see what happens here. I've already got one piece of the stock, and how about that? The barrel, the action is basically coming right out of there. So that is amazing. Trigger, the only thing that's holding it on is basically the bayonet here at the front. And had I been thinking, I would have opened the bayonet. Oh my god, that's sticky. But it should be able to slide right up and remove this anyway, like so. There we go. So as you can see, it's not really, and this part is going to come off as well. I'm just not prying on it right now. There's really not a heck of a lot to the firearm. I mean, it's very rudimentary. That barrel is extremely short, and you can kind of see where it hasn't seen the light of day for a long time, because the bluing is still like immaculate on it. A very, very, very simple style firearm. Now let's see if I can like wiggle this out a little bit, because I have a feeling. There we go. So there's the charger, or you know, where you load the rounds into, and actually it's not that bad a shape. I think there's a couple of spots that's going to need a little touch up, and I'll clean that up, maybe get some fine steel wool just to remove. But even with just like the penetrating oil that's kind of gone through there, it's actually brightened it up pretty good. And I'm kind of happy about what I see so far regarding the color of the wood, because I've seen ones that are extremely light, and this looks like it may, and I remember reading that initially they were done with like a mahogany, and then they started to get short basically on the supplies, so they switched over from mahogany to birch, and I was really hoping that I wasn't getting birch. So I'm going to take those screws that I've already removed and I'm going to put them in that little magnetic jar or bowl. Okay, so then I have my rear slant. Yeah, and that one's coming off too, so that's amazing. I really, like I said, I do want to give this thing some love, but I don't want to kind of destroy where it's come from as well. I think these things, you know, they've earned their place, you know, to have a little bit of wear and tear on them. And, you know, it's kind of like those, I don't know if you ever had an old beater of a truck, you know, and people say, why are you driving that still? You know, it's a piece of crap, but you kind of love it because you remember which each dent and everything came from. So, although I don't remember, I don't know where each one of these gouges and dents came from, but I can imagine where they came from. So we're going to try this little butt plate here. See where that gets us. Oh yeah. So the butt plate is in pretty sad shape, and the stock around the butt plate is, I mean, it's in pretty sad shape as well. Probably because, you know, soldiers, I've been a soldier, I know what it's like. You know, if you're fussing with something, you're trying to open something and it won't go, what do you have to do, right? Get a hammer, and if it doesn't move the first time, you get a bigger hammer. So I'm assuming that these butts were probably used as hammers quite frequently. This, and case in point, so I'm trying to get at this screw right here, and I can see that the actual head of it is a little bit marred up, probably because it was slammed on the ground in this direction, and you can see where the screw actually rounds right there, and that's a little bit of a point. So if you're going to come in contact with the ground, it's probably going to hit there first, especially the weight of the rifle, which is going to lean this way. So I'm going to see if I can clean this up a little bit. I'm going to take my time with it. The screw should come out. Everything else has come out, so I have no reason to believe that that is not going to come out. I just need to clean that up, and I'll probably get like a little file or something, and just, or maybe even a hacksaw blade, and just go through there just to try and clean that up so I can at least get the screw out. All right, and then we're going to be off to clean the stock. What I'm going to do is, like, you can see that there's a lot of, and I can feel it, you can't obviously, but there's a lot of oil on here, so I'm just going to start with going with this, and I've got my like tub, and I'm just going to spray this green, this simple green all-purpose cleaner, and I'm going to go at it with a Scotch-Brite, and we're just going to see where I get down to, basically. And I can see already that it's having an effect, you know, like, it's going to take a while. Be patient with it, right? Because, I mean, it took, you know, 105 years to get this crap on here. It's not going to come out overnight, but you can see, like, you know, on the Scotch pad, that there's already a lot of grime coming off. So I'm just going to take my time, and while I'm doing this, I'm probably going to look for cracks in the stock, which I don't think there is any, although there's a couple of little spots here. Like I said, the biggest thing on this stock is just the dents and the gouges. I'm going to remove the dents, and I'm going to live with the gouges, or the majority of the gouges. Anyway, so take your time, and even some boiling water is going to help loosen that up, but you can see, like, it's more or less coming off on my fingers. So it just needs a really good scrubbing with this stuff, and I'm anxious to kind of see what the condition of the wood is underneath. Be careful, because it's not the smoothest thing in the world. Okay guys, we're back. The wood has been drying. I did spend quite a bit of time scrubbing it, and as you can see, it's basically, you know, dry. And when it's in this kind of condition, you can really see, and I'll get up nice and close here, so you can really see the dents and whatnot, but it came out pretty clean. And I mean, there's a big dent right there. It's not a gouge, it's a dent, but you can see it. And there's some tiny little scratches as well. And what I'll probably do with those is just go over those with a really fine sandpaper, and hopefully it'll come right out. So I'm happy with the color, and even when it was wet, I could kind of see that there was this nice pattern down the stock. So I'm hoping that that comes out really well. And so this step of the process is basically grab a wet towel and an iron, a hot iron, and you're going to put it on. I've done this with pieces of furniture, so I can't see why it wouldn't work out for this. You might need to do it a couple times, but you're just going to lay it down or put it where you see like a gouge. And what that heat process should do, and you want it a little bit thinner than that. I've got it like doubled over. So what that heat process should do is kind of lift the grain, and we'll see if this is going to work out for me. Okay, it's definitely hot enough. I can see the steam coming off the iron. You might want to, I've seen other people do this, and what they put is tin foil between. If you're worried about kind of ruining one of your wife's tea towels or her iron, you might want to do that. But it does kind of get in there and lift and kind of remove some of the dents. It's not going to be perfect, and I'm not looking for perfect. As I already said, I kind of want to preserve some of the history, and you might have to do it a couple times, but what I plan on doing is just kind of running this over a few times. You don't have to put any pressure, you just let the heat do the job. Do this a couple times, see how much of the dents I can remove, and then like run some fine grit sandpaper over top of it. I did use a little bit of the wood filler. I knew I was kind of have to, because some of the gouges were really deep and I didn't like the location of where they were, especially up around like where your hand kind of tucks over. So this is pretty fast drying, and you can kind of feel it. I put a little bit by the edge of the stock as well, where the wood had more or less splintered off. So I'm just going to take sandpaper again, like my best friend here, and just lightly go over it. This stuff here is supposed to be good for oil-based, water-based stains, and like I said, it dries fairly fast, and I'm just going to do a light sand on it. And after that, my plan is basically to let this dry completely. Okay, so while I'm waiting for the wood to fully dry, I'm just going to start like tackling, you know, the metal pieces of this, because they're pretty gummed up. I've got my nylon brush. I also have a set of picks over there, and I've got these brass brushes. I'm going to see what I can do with this as far as getting into all the nooks and crannies. I mean, just, you know, just the functionality of it. It's pretty neat how rudimentary, you know, something like just the little spring backing on the butt plate is, but it's filthy, disgusting. The bolt is pretty grimy, so I'm going to give this a little shot of the good old universal cleaner here, and I'm not going to be shy with it, because I kind of want it to soak in and loosen up a lot of that stuff. It smells pretty good, actually. Surprise, surprise. Anyway, that's what I'm doing. So, you know, trying to make this project not go as fast as possible. As I said, you kind of have to take your time, but I'm going to try and get a couple of things going all at the same time, and that will hopefully expedite the process. Okay, so I'm going to let that kind of soak in. It's very interesting stuff. This has been soaking for a little while. We'll see how much grime comes off of that. And you know, especially any of the grooves and stuff like that. And I can see, well, I don't know if you can see it, but there's already some like crap that came off basically as soon as I sprayed it down. Okay, so kind of getting to the fun part now, where we can see a little bit of bluing going on, and this is supposed to be very, very good. I don't know, I haven't used it, but what I could gather from the instructions is use this stuff. It's kind of like a break free. It'll get rid of all the oil and whatnot. And I'm not going to blue the entire bolt, but in some areas where it should be blued, I'm definitely going to blue. So I'm going to go over that. I'm going to wipe it down just to get rid of all the oil and contaminants that could interfere with the bluing process. I've already cleaned it, so it shouldn't be that bad. All right, and then I've got this little pin that goes onto the stock. I'm going to do that as well. So same kind of thing. Just get rid of everything on there, and there's not very much in this, so I would say use sparingly. Okay, so this is my little bluing, which is a Schnellbrunnerung. So I think that means browning, actually. So we're gonna get my swab here, because it says basically to get a swab or a brush or soak it, whatever. And I'm just, you know, you can see the edge of it. It's blue, and I'm gonna dab it. And what it says is that it should like go to a brown and then a black, and it'll almost get like a milky look on it. So this stuff here, this is supposed to be really, really good just for doing touch-up bluing. And I don't have a lot of spots where it's really bad on this firearm, thank God. But I did want to do a couple of touch-ups on it, just, you know. Okay, so as you can see, it gets like a kind of a milky kind of coating to it. And again, I didn't go all the way down the bolt. I wanted the bolt handle to be done. And you can see how like it's got this milky kind of waxy appearance to it. So once that appears, all you need to do is grab your cloths, oil them up, and just basically put a coat of oil on it. I did this one here, so you can see, and this had some pitting. Obviously, you're not going to see the pitting now. But the two products, again, it's this this green top stuff that cleans it off. It's like a brake free. You could probably use an acetone, would do the same thing. And then there's this, which I think is a quick blue. I'm not. Hey, what is going on? It's like part like 6.5 or something of this minor restoration of the Carcano. The reason why I say 6.5 is because in order to do this stock, well, there was like some pretty heavy gouges, which I've already talked about, and I filled it. So I kind of added to the stain just to get it to look a little bit closer to what the color of it is, but I didn't want to go too heavy on fixing the stock. I didn't want to take too much material off. So it's in pretty good condition though, as it is. And it was dry. I mean, it was so dry, when I took this magazine part off, it basically fell out of the firearm. And now it's actually a tight fit. So I've been putting linseed oil to the inside and outside and, you know, letting it sit. And the last couple of coats, I think I did 3 coats total. The last couple I've just basically wiped it after about 24 hours. So that's why like several days have gone by and it's now dry-ish. And the color matches pretty good. I mean, there's some hand grease and whatnot on that. But I wanted to show you guys this product, the Ballastor browning or bluing, depending on how you want to look at it, as always. So I've got a couple of the wood screws, and there's 2 that were on the butt plate that fastens it on, and I mean, they were beat up pretty good. So I had to go at it with a hacksaw blade to kind of cut the groove so I could get a screwdriver back into it. But they were beat up pretty good, and as you can see, 3 of them are basically silvered. So what I did was I sanded them off and you know, made sure they weren't rough anymore. And I'm just going to do a quick browning on this so you can see the results. So this is like the I think it's like an etching kind of material. And you just give it a little spray. Like so. And it's pretty mesmerizing actually to do this. And then I'm going to take this stuff and I'm just going to use a Q-tip because I don't need very much of it. I want to be really careful, of course, not to spill it. And it happens so quickly. The rest of the screws are in good shape, as you can see. Like, you know, I cleaned them up a little bit and I'll be applying a little bit of oil to it.
but they turned out pretty good. I don't even think I got down in the bottom there. So I've just got like a Q-tip, and I'm just gonna dab it, because that's what it says to do. Just dab it. But I think I'm gonna start assembling it, which I'm really anxious to do. So, again, this is my first restoration of a firearm, and I wouldn't say that it was like a complete restoration because the actual firearm wasn't too bad a condition, but look how good that came out. I mean, that bluing just sharpened it up like crazy, and the screws are in pretty good condition. They're not perfect, but I wouldn't anticipate anything to be perfect after this age. That's the one that came off the butt plate, and that screw is kind of sort of a little bit damaged, so I want to put that one back into its home. This is going to take a long time to edit this. Wrong screwdriver. Just because there was a lot of fiddling around with it. Ouch.
When you said short, I didn't know what it could be.
So, we're just going to put it together slowly but surely. If you have a firearm that's at your house and needs a little touch up, this is a fantastic product. Especially like one that's, you know, a tried and true hunting firearm that you've been throwing in and out of your truck forever. They get dents, they get dings. You know, as soon as you expose bare metal, it's going to be prone to rust. So I just want to, and this part here came out really cool too. That's the sling attachment here in the back. And like I said, when I first took this apart, it basically fell out of the stock because of how dry that was. Certainly not the case anymore. So I know now that this stuff is going back together, that it's going to be good for years to come. I mean, you can tell it's going in tight when you can hear the wood squeaking, protesting. It's like, what are you doing to me? This already looks like amazing. The barrel was kind of a pain to take out. Oh, that was nice. Oh. All right. So there's the sling swivel. Looks good so far. And I actually did find the serial number on the barrel, and the barrel serial number matches the stamp that's on the stock, so that is always a cool thing when that happens. And it is going to be the long bolt in the rear, I believe. But I mean, before it, like I said, I had to give it a little whack to kind of get it out of there, but it basically fell out once and now, like, that's amazing. Like, the wood is actually so much more healthy than what it was. The bayonet I want to extend, and I went over the bayonet as well because that was dry. So I can see where the trigger goes. It's just a matter of lining things up. These rifles were so, like, simple in their assembly. I guess they really wanted to make sure, you know, that they could get them together no matter the time. That is so cool. Just going to slide this band up a little bit so I can get the top part. I can see the top part chipped away a little bit, which, I mean, completely to be expected. That's where the front sight is, or rear sight I should say. So it probably got banged around a little bit. There's the band. As you can see, it's not a complete match. It'll probably match as time goes on, I would say. All right, so now I need a long skinny pin. That guy right there for the band. And I was going to do these as well, but I looked at them and they're in like really good condition. So I kind of don't want to mess with anything. I want to leave as much original as possible. I'd like to get a sling for it, make it look more better. Take the bayonet down. Alright, so I think it is short screw up front, long screw in the back. I want to try and be extremely careful. These don't have to be like super torqued in anyway. I really spent a lot of time and cleaned the grooves that the bolt goes into. So I mean, it was so sticky before, so I'm really hoping that that had a positive effect on it. There was a little bit of Cosmoline in there, not too much. Oh yeah. So there it is, assembled mostly, and I just want to slide this guy in, pull the trigger, and I'm going to just put a little bit of oil because I don't know when the next time I'm going to shoot this is. Hopefully soon, but you're not going to hurt it by putting a little bit of extra oil, as long as you take care of it before you shoot quite a bit. That's what I want. I mean, there's some play in there, but if you look at it before and after, that thing moves back so much smoother than it did before. I'm just going to put a little bit in this action back here and give it a little. So there it is, people. The partial restore on the Carcano, which I think, again, like I said, I think it's like 1917. You can see the metal now. It's got a little extra oil on it, which I wanted to leave on there. Everything came out really good. The wood itself was really dry. And I think I've solved that issue now. I mean, it doesn't cycle like a Tika or a Bergara, but it is so much better than what it was. Look at that. Very nice. Test it. Hey, what do you know? It still works. Here's a kind of a fun thing if you didn't know this. The action actually cycles or cocks the action in the rifle as soon as you move the bolt up. So if you can watch the top of this, it cocks it as soon as you move it up. So it doesn't take the forward action, it's already cocked. And this is actually the safety, which has to be, it's got to be loosened up a little bit because it's a little tight, but I'm going to work at that, play with that, and get everything working. There it is, guys, finally.
Black came out really good. The bluing on all the bare metal came out extraordinarily good. Very pleased with it. I guess the next one is the Lee Enfield. Time-wise, what did it take me? The biggest, I would say, time factor on this is if you use the linseed oil, you have to let it dry in between coats. Not on the first one. That one you want to do the coat, wait like 15-20 minutes and then wipe off the excess. Otherwise you'll never get a dry wood. It'll just stay sticky. But after that, I left it like 12 hours. Then I put a coat. Then I let it sit for 24 hours. I wiped what I could. There wasn't anything coming off it. I just wanted to make sure that I didn't go heavy in some areas and light in other ones. So that in itself took like 3 days basically to do the last 2 coats. And then, like I said, I was very generous with the oil when I had it stripped apart. Made sure that the barrel had an oil coating even on the underneath. There was some grime in that was caked in and gummed in around like where, you know, the chamber is. For that I used either a brass brush or a nylon brush just to get into the nooks and crannies, and it came out really, really good. I'm happy with it. I didn't want to go like this is not a from beat up soaking in the mud water to brand new. This was actually already in decent condition, so I just wanted to liven it up and bring it back to life, and I think that's what I've accomplished. And I just noticed something. I put one of the screws from the butt plate is here. I couldn't tell the difference, but I can tell when I look at the side because one is raised a little bit higher than the other. So I'm going to fix that. But other than that, guys, let me know what you think in the comments. If you like this, go ahead and click that like, subscribe. I've got a couple of other firearms that could use a little TLC. Do not be afraid of trying this. It's very simple. You get a good product like this bear stall, and it'll work extremely well, and touch-ups where you need it, and protect your firearm as well, your investment. All right, have a good night.